Hello, welcome back to the Art Channel. This week Joshua and I are at the National Gallery in London looking at an exhibition by Chris Ofili called Weaving Magic, which comprises a central tapestry, a mural and preparatory watercolours and sketches.
The National Gallery has been around for 200 years and contemporary art has always been here in the gallery in some way. I suppose particularly, since the middle of the 20th century, the gallery has always been very interested in having a constant relationship with contemporary artists. And I think a lot of contemporary artists see the National Gallery as an essential kind of reference point for them. So the gallery, every now and then we invite a practicing artist to come and do something which is somehow related to the gallery's collection, somehow a response to the works that they see in the gallery. And I think that's one of the things that are perfectly apparent here with Chris Ofili's new tapestry.
The focal point of this exhibition is this extraordinary tapestry made by the Dovecot Studio in Edinburgh, taking up to 3 years, over 6,500 hours, comprising over 250 colours. It's a remarkable, extraordinary achievement. The title of the work is The Caged Bird's Song, and we can see the caged bird here on the right being held aloft by this character who pulls back a curtain. In the centre of the tapestry we have two figures, a man and a woman, appearing to be relaxed in an outdoor setting. He plays a guitar, it's a love song. She lies there drinking from a cocktail glass, and above we can see the cocktail being poured down from above, appearing, as it were, as a stream through the foliage.
It is an extraordinary piece of work, and I think one of the interesting things about it is that Ofili is collaborating. This starts life as a small watercolour, and it's then blown up on a huge piece of acetate and sits behind an 18-foot loom while these people work together to translate it. Interestingly, he says it is an interpretation. It's not a copy of the watercolour that he makes. And you're right, it's a scene of a kind of Garden of Eden, possibly, two figures pulling back, revealing this kind of intimate scene with the sea, this kind of bubbling brook, and this waterfall. And everything is based on the landscape and Ofili's experiences with Trinidad, where he's lived for the past 10, 12 years. So this is very much a reflection of the place that he lives. The caged birds, interestingly, as you say, being held on the right. On the left is a female figure holding this crab-eye seed, which is fed to these birds to make them sing. They're used in kind of singing competitions.
Well, I think the tropicality of the tapestry is so interesting. Here in Trafalgar Square, placed within a room that's an entire installation comprising a frieze that is made using a traditional fresco technique. And the colours of the tapestry just kind of explode off the wall, don't they? These hot tropical colours of heat and of moisture. We've got the references to the botany of the tropics, the palm tree. We have the waterfall in the centre of the tapestry here, and the deep turquoise sea of the Caribbean. It is full of sensuality, of luxuriance, and of seduction.
I think also, though, there's a feeling of threat. The backdrop to all of this is a thunderous sky, a glowering sky. And I think Ofili does talk about Trinidad being perceived as a paradise, but of course there are issues of crime and poverty as is across the world. So I think he wants to reflect that partially as well. At the top of the tapestry is this little cubist face, and this is Mario Balotelli, or based on the black Italian footballer who was adopted by an Italian family, and is in the news for being a wonderful footballer, but also for his kind of volatile personality. And he's morphed into this kind of cocktail waiter at the top of the piece.
He's like a sort of Shakespearean sprite, isn't he? There's something mischievous about him. Is he drugging this female subject? Is he intoxicating her with this kind of creme de menthe looking liquid that flows down the centre of the tapestry? Is he complicit with the male musician, or is he a kind of almost a sort of extraneous character who intervenes to disrupt this love song, this sort of scene of love?
I think there is definitely trouble in paradise, though. This is quite a dark scene. Balotelli, as you says, is, or the figure based on him, is kind of hidden up there in the leaves of this tree. And I think it reflects Ofili's interest in what he calls demigods. He's interested in classical mythology, which is reflected in the composition, but he's interested in the people that we raise to the status of demigods, i.e. international footballers.
I mean, we're here in the home of Britain's collection of historic European painting, full of analogies, of mythologies and legends and allegory. And I think there are so many sort of art historical references. I'm thinking about Picasso's Demoiselle d'Avignon with the pulling back of the curtain. I'm thinking of Jean-Antoine Watteau, these fêtes galantes with musicians and clowns. You know, it's sort of embedded with these painterly traditions, but at the same time, it's very Caribbean, isn't it? It's got that sort of lushness, that fertility, and that air of mystique, of course, viewed from a kind of London perspective.
I think it's also a challenging thing to do to work in collaboration. A small watercolour, and watercolour behaves in a very particular way. It's quite uncontrollable. It has a life of its own. Then working with a group of weavers to translate this, to reinterpret this into a tapestry is a huge challenge. And I think to a great extent that kind of ebb and flow of the watercolour has been caught. But it has to be said, there are different ways of working and they have different qualities.
He really challenged the Tapestry studio, didn't he, to try and catch the spirit of watercolour, but made and presented in wool, in an entirely different media and technique. But I think you can see it specifically in the areas of darkening clouds that presage a storm, that saturation of ink, the way it pulls around the edges. And you get washes of colour too in the water, and here even just in the curtain and the figure of the male character carrying the bird.
I think interesting too, perhaps lastly, that it's in the form of a triptych in the National Gallery. So of course there's always going to be that reference to religious painting. Even the way it's hung within this room, you walk in towards it, it's the central piece in the room.
I think Chris is very knowledgeable and very savvy. He's also spent quite a long time at the gallery, so he knows this collection well. He also knows, as it were, the range of pictures which form or the range of art that forms the sort of backdrop to anyone who's really interested in the tradition. So I think he is thinking about it, possibly consciously, but it's kind of seeping through, even unconsciously, in the way he's put together the composition. I mean, the composition itself, the subject matter itself, of course, is intimately related to those very beautiful paintings by Titian and by Poussin and so on, works which are in this gallery and in other great galleries.
And finally, we should mention, of course, this extraordinary mural, which at first glance appears quite kind of divorced from the subject of the tapestry. But nevertheless, Chris Ofili is very explicit in designing this setting for the tapestry. And these figures are rather curious, aren't they? They resemble perhaps temple paintings from India, perhaps from Cambodia or Indonesia. They've got this kind of mythical hybrid quality. But what I'm also noticing is how some of these female figures appear to have male facial hair, as if they're like hermaphrodites or androgynous. It's a conundrum.
I think he's having fun with that tradition. I think he's playing on our assumptions, what we expect to see. It's quite interesting that it is site-specific. The figures are seated or lying above the doorway, so it's very much tailored for this space. And again, another collaboration, working with scenic painters from the Royal Opera House. So a very complex setup to produce this exhibition.
Thank you for watching the Art Channel. Please do share this film and also subscribe to the Art Channel. You can also follow us on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter.